Welcome back to Kenpo. Today is our last day on short and long form 1. We're going to use today as a transition into short and long form 2 by thinking about stepping with intention. Our lesson today is going to move through all 4 of those kata and also some self-defense techniques, but to start we're going to begin with just a basic step through reverse punch. The takeaway for today is that stepping is not about your feet. As with everything else we've done, it's all about your center. If I think about stepping forward to do my reverse punch using my foot, then I'm going to end up having to lift it up, move it forward, set it down, and then bring my weight to it. Obviously that's a terrible step and none of you would ever do it that way. But even in principle, if I'm thinking about my foot, I'm going to be dragging it behind me, and then I'm going to be extending it out in front of me and moving to it. Good. We like to practice keeping our head even as we step forward, which gets us starting to think about our center, because as my foot draws up, naturally my center is going to rise up. I get taller. So I have to think about my center compressing down as my foot comes up, and then staying even as it moves forward. But that's a harder way to think about stepping. It's hard because I'm thinking about my center reacting to my foot. Foot moves up, center moves down, foot moves out, center stays even. Instead, if I think about my center pulling my body forward, I can fix the problem of my center oscillating, and I can get a faster, more solid step. So as we step forward and do our center punch, for the first couple of exercises, I want us to just kind of fall into it. I'm literally going to take my belt knot from my core and fling it forward and try not to fall on my face. This gets us into the feel of walking. We don't walk with our feet. We walk with our centers. They move forward and our feet catch us as we go. Rick Houghton sensei quotes Bruce Lee, who I don't like to quote because he's sort of the Albert Einstein of martial arts, as saying people are too concerned when they do martial arts. What he means is that we get too obsessed with having everything in the right position and we kind of forget to use our bodies. So instead of worrying too much about making sure my foot does our V-step track up to the front and moves forward, instead of worrying too much about when my back foot turns, I'm just going to think my center is here, I would like to fill the space in front of me, and I do. For me, the best way of keeping my attention on my center and not my foot is to think not about pushing off my back foot, or even about pushing off my front foot, but rather to think about falling through my front foot. I get this from Inouye Sensei, who is Rika Usami's teacher. You just fall through your front leg and catch yourself. I have a natural hip rotation because I have to in order to not end up this way, and then I use that to throw my strike. Back to short form 1, long form 1 doesn't actually matter. When we step back, if I think about stepping back and blocking with my front foot, I'm going to go up. Or at the very least, there's going to be a big circle or lag. And most importantly, if you look at my stance right now, my center is on my back foot. I'm moving away. So instead, I think about falling through my back leg. I'm going to not fall out of my stance, but fall into my stance. I'm going to fall into my stance through my center. That keeps my attention moving forward, it keeps my center forward, it keeps me balanced. So I'll often practice short form 1, not worrying about my arms too much, not even worrying too much about my foot position, just thinking about my center, making sure that I'm moving back but also have that forward intention behind all of my steps. So I'm still here, I'm going to hit my wall if I step back from there. And I fall through my center again to here, and I fall through this front leg to here, and I fall through my back leg to here. That keeps me stepping with my center and not with my foot. This is tricky because we start with stepping back, which I think is harder to do with your center. It's much easier to fall forward than it is to fall backward and stay within balance. But we start by moving back because if we're a white or a yellow belt, and we're practicing our white, yellow, orange techniques, then we need to move back out of the way because we don't have the same kind of read time or response rate, so we can't move into a strike. But at the same time, moving back with our center is the only way that we can make those stepping back techniques work. If I take a big step with my foot for attacking mace, I probably got hit before I even got the block out. I definitely don't have any connection to my back foot to drive into my punch from there. I have to think about sort of falling back into it to make the rest of the technique work. The technique I want to focus on for this particular lesson is thrusting salute, and it will come up again in short form too. Both attacking mace and thrusting salute test whether we're stepping back with our center by making us kick afterward. If we go back and our weight's on our back foot and our weight's on our back foot, it's pretty hard to kick without having to shift forward. Same here. If I have to kick forward, I've got to shift my weight before I can kick. Idea number one is that we want to step back with our center so that our foot is ready to kick. I don't need my weight sitting here. Even if I'm in a neutral bow, I have to be relaxed and centered in order to throw my kick. In order to get in the right position, I'm going to steal another thing from Rick Houghton Sensei, and think about your body as being just floppy and loose. I call this the coat hanger with my students. I'm going to put a hanger in the back of my gi and just hang on. So as I step back, if I am too concerned with my arms and too tight, then I'm going to end up screwing up my center somehow. If I just relax, I'm much more prepared for the kick. So I coat hanger my body, and my center is ready for the kick. It's true of any technique. So attacking mace, if I'm tight and my shoulders are up and I'm ready to fight, I'm disconnected from my legs, I can feel that my center is not in the right spot. If I coat hanger and I just sort of fall into my stance, then I'm ready to follow up. Yeah. So whether stepping back or stepping forward, we do it with our center, and that allows us to follow up quickly. So let's focus a little bit on thrusting salute for a second. In a really rigid version of thrusting salute, we move back. We have to activate our muscles to keep ourselves from flying away. And then also, we have to push against our momentum. So if you just watch my belt knot, I'm going to think about falling into my stance and then falling into the kick in a kind of circle. I do that by staying relaxed and coat hangery. That way I'm not drawing two lines, 1, 2. Doing thrusting salute that way is sort of like punching and pulling against it at the same time by activating my bicep, or trying immediately to activate my bicep, which raises my shoulder, as opposed to just relaxing into my strike. So instead of pulling immediately against my center, I'm just going to let it hang there as I circle, and then I'm also going to let it fall through my front leg for the follow-up. I'm just drawing one line. That works because I'm thinking about falling into this leg for the stepping back and falling into this leg for the kick forward. So everything is moving forward even as my body gets out of the way. This is also super important for that initial step back. The kick is coming in and I step with my foot first. My center hasn't moved, now it's moved. Probably got kicked in that time. If I drop into this leg first, my center moves first, so that I can get out of the way of the kick without having to lag behind my foot. So ultimately, while we're practicing stepping back, falling into our center in short form 1, we're using that to work up to falling into our center in short and long form 2, where we start to compound rotation with backup mass. So in our opening move in short form 2, we can either step forward with our foot, or we can fall forward through our supporting leg into that first strike. I'm much more relaxed here. I'm hanging over my center, and most importantly, I'm here first, as opposed to my foot moving first and then the rest of my body following. So one of the martial arts I practice is Aikido, and it is inevitable that if you show up to a seminar and the teacher is Japanese, you're going to do Aikido. And if you show up to a seminar and it's an old white dude, they're going to talk about Buddhism and philosophy for 3 hours while you kneel down and slowly lose feeling in your legs. Which means I don't want to belabor this point too much. But thinking both pragmatically about practice and then also about being in freaking quarantine for an infinite amount of time, there's something kind of freeing about practicing Aikido correctly. When I first started, because I had this Kenpo background, I was constantly asking Masako Sensei, okay, am I stepping 45 degrees? Am I stepping somewhere in between, so 75 degrees? And she would always just answer, follow partner, follow partner. But I think now, in the middle of quarantine, it's kind of about not worrying about where your hand is, where your foot is, or the precise angle. It's just sort of letting yourself fall into that space. So both in terms of your body mechanics and then maybe in terms of the insanity of quarantine, just being in that moment and falling into the space might produce better results.